All right, for tonight's homework help, I'm only going to do 3 problems, but that's only because I really want you guys to answer the questions. I feel like if I do all the odd questions, then there's a lot of good questions that you'll miss out on. Okay, so I'm going to do 2, 3, and 5. And I'm going to kind of talk to you a little bit about number 6. We kind of went over, we talked a little bit about number 7 in class today. And I want to see what you guys do with 8, 9, 10, and 11. So let's start with number 2. So remember, whenever we look at these equations, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Remember, there's some Khan Academy links in the homework assignment tonight that you can look at if you want extra practice graphing linear equations. I have one for graphing in slope-intercept form, one for graphing in standard form, and then there's one for converting between forms. All of those things are very important. Please make sure that you are like rock solid on how to do those. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one here at number 2. Number 1 is pretty easy. Number 2 is a little tricky. I don't really even think, honestly, I think number 3 is pretty easy too, but yeah, you know what? Number 3 is pretty easy. You're going to do that one by yourselves. Ha ha. Okay, so let's look at number 2. For number 2, we have 2 lines. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find M and B. Okay, and I like to graph them in 2 different colors. If you want to, you can as well. On the test and on the STAR test, you can ask for colored pencils, and that's completely appropriate and acceptable. Okay, so my slope here is 4/5. My y-intercept is -2. So I'm always going to start at my y-intercept, and I'm going to graph from there. Okay, so I'm going to rise 4, since my slope is positive 4/5. I'm going to rise 4 and run 5. Rise 4, run 5. And then I can continue that pattern by falling and going back 5, falling 4 and going back 5. And then, if you want to, or if you don't, it doesn't really honestly matter, but I think you probably want to, especially for this one, go ahead and draw your line. And I saw a lot of people yesterday just doing the line going in one direction. The line really should go throughout your entire coordinate grid. Okay. Now with our second color, again, you don't have to, but I like to, I'm going to look at y equals 4. Okay, well, there is nothing for slope. So what that means is my slope is 0. My y-intercept is -4. Since my slope is 0, this is a horizontal line. It's a horizontal y equals -4. That means my y-intercept is at -4, and it's a horizontal line, which means that it's going to go from side to side, like this. Okay? So those are my 2 lines. Now, when I look for the intersection, this one's a little tricky because the intersection is not right on one of the points. It looks like it kind of goes through the middle there. Okay? There's my intersection. So it looks like it's at -2.5 about, and then -4. Okay. Next week we will learn how to actually solve these when we have kind of like when we have a point like this. We will learn how to algebraically solve them for when we get an answer that's not precise or that we're kind of guessing on. Okay. And like I said, I'm not going to do number 3. Number 3 is pretty easy. You should be able to tell from by looking at it what that one is. Okay. Let's take a look at number 5. Now number 5, it says for you to have a calculator. Remember, I have given you a lot of calculator replacements that you can use. Oh my gosh, seriously, what is going on with this? Okay, that is too bright. Okay, so we're going to put my 2 equations in. Okay, I have x minus 1 and y equals 2x minus 7. Okay, when I look at the table, remember my table is usually going to start at 0 like this. Okay, so if I'm not sure, you can always start by looking at the graph. And the reason sometimes I like to start by looking at the graph is because the graph will kind of immediately give me an idea of whether I'm looking at one solution, no solution, infinitely many. It'll tell me right away what I've got going on. In this case, I see that I have one solution. It looks like it's somewhere around -2. So when I look at my table, I'm going to go back and, oh, hey, there it is. Look at it, at -2, -3, -3. So what I'm going to do, whenever I look at these tables, if they ask me to write it down, I'm going to do 2 above and 2 below. So -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, and then 1, -1, -3, okay, I don't know what just happened there, that's a 5, -7. And then I'm going to circle the row where they're equal, and then put parentheses like that. That is my solution. -2, -3. It's the x and y. So you see it's the x and the y where they're equal. Okay. Now, when we look at the equations like this, I can see because y1 and y2 are right next to each other. When I look at this, now I'm not going to do this for you, but here's how I want you to think about it. That's y1 and that's y2. What do I look for when I'm trying to find this? I'm looking for the x value where y1 and y2 are equal. When you see it like this, you're still doing that exact same thing. You're looking for the x value where y1 and y2 are equal. I want to see what you do with that. Okay, find a solution. Let's look at the back here. We talked about this one earlier. What does it mean when it has no solutions? Okay, so you're thinking when it has no solutions, what kind of lines are they? And then from that, I want you to figure out which one is the answer. Down here where it says if they have slope of 4 and the same y-intercept, how many solutions will the system have? Well, if they have the same slope and the same y-intercept, what kind of lines are they? Likewise for number 9, if they have the same slope and different y-intercepts, what kind of lines are they? Okay. Now for this last one, when they ask you for the solution, remember the solution is where or how or if they intersect. Well, they do intersect. You need to find me that coordinate. When it says what does it mean? It means in this situation. You may be thinking they didn't give me a situation, but they did because they labeled the axes. So the situation, the axis, the x and the y axis tell me what the situation is. Okay, that is your homework help. If you need any more help, make sure that you write down questions so that you know what to ask me tomorrow.